Hey everybody. Yeah, you can see right there's two Sonic entries for this week so far. For as it's two Sonic entries as of today, two Sonic fan entries as of today, the 8th of May 2013. But one is done by an individual that is asking the question of contracting the past. And here's what they have to say. They did this about 1 day and 5 hours ago, but this is what they have to say, contracting the past. And I quote, I remember in the beginning of the comic, Nicole had this super freaking awesome firewall thing. Since she was from the future, uh, since she was from the future, and so they can't hack into her to find out about the future or anything else that Sally and the rest can find out. Now, during the Iron Dominion arc, we know that the Iron Queen somehow hacks into Nicole, causing her to turn against the Freedom Fighters. Now, hold on for a moment. The Iron Queen successfully hacked into Nicole? What the heck happened to the firewall that Nicole had? Did the Iron Queen have leverage over the firewall or something like that? Maybe I honestly think Ian forgot about. Maybe I honestly think Ian forgot all about the firewall because, from what I've heard, because I've yet to read 247, Tails doll does something similar along the lines of breaching her defenses. But that's what has been confusing me. If they failed before, or if they failed before and now others succeed, why? What makes the villains better than Rotor and the others who have tried and failed to do so? Other than plot device, and they are villains. It seems unlikely they can pass through something that has, or was, been said to be impenetrable. But to me, that throws away something Nicole always had. She can't be hacked, and that was something I liked. They couldn't find out more or than what they needed to know at that point in time, but the villains can and use her against everyone? I just see a plot hole in that. Now I want to know if those two individuals have the ability to do what Rhoda and the others could not. It might be possible, but unlikely. Did Ian Flynn forget about the feature of Nicole? Possibly, though if he keeps bringing stuff back from the past, maybe not. I think it's more or less a bit of both. Flynn forgetting about that part, and they might have the power to do so. What do you guys think? Okay, well, apparently this individual is just wondering, and even though this could have been discussed long before, is wondering why in the world, like Eggman or any Eggman device, or even the Iron Queen, can somehow hack into Nicole when the others couldn't. Well, you have to understand one thing, my friends. The Iron Queen is techno magic. So hacking into somebody isn't that hard. But you see, what Rotor was trying to do is he was trying to find out about her origins, if I remember correctly, and whatever else she knew, but she would not allow it. Ian Flynn, what he did is he didn't have the Iron Queen hack into Nicole and say, "Hey, I want to know everything about you." No, he had the Iron Queen hack into Nicole and modify her into what has been dubbed as Iron Nicole, and what became known as into what she would become known as Iron Nicole. So there you go. It wasn't more or less of, hacking into Nicole to find out information. It was more along the lines of hacking into her defenses and manipulating her into her own advantage. As far as the Tails doll goes, you also got to remember we had the Genesis wave. So some things were altered, and the Tails doll apparently found a way to alter that. And basically, because of that those alterations, if you will, Eggman was able to use the Tails doll to break the defenses that Nicole had on the city. Now the next one is by somebody that posted this 17 hours and 3 minutes ago. And this is entitled Time Period. And this is what this individual has to say. And I quote, "Hey, time to complain about something that's not Flint's fault." Okay, so it is his fault for not taking any steps to fix it, but Continuing on, I quote, "So in this series, our main heroes live in a city made almost entirely out of nanites. Two of their number are super smart mechanics. One of them normally has robotic limbs, and another still is a sentient supercomputer. They once had an army of robotic hedgehogs and have a machine that can transport people into cyberspace. This all points to things being pretty technologically advanced, right? Then why the heck are Marseille, which cannot decide whether it's supposed to be not England or not France, and Chun Na, which is supposed to be the Mobian equivalent of industry giant China, so backward? One could also ask this of the wolf pack, but they originated in Satyam, which all the Mobians lived in low-tech villages, and technology was, aside from Nicole, whose origins was a mystery, but would have been revealed to be one of Robotnik's earliest victims, and whatever Rotor could jury up with scraps from other machines, a simple tool of evil. However, in the proper advanced Archie world, for some reason, Marseille's alert freedom fighters team are a gang of Robin Hood XPs that have no weapons that are more advanced than a longbow. Yes, these guys are supposed to be the country's equivalent into the Knothole Gang. BS. And hey, as someone who lives in England, we're really advanced too, you know. We invented vector thrust aircraft Harriers. We invented vector thrust aircraft Harriers. That was us, among other things. And then we get to Chun Na, whereas China is an ultra-elite industrial country that produced a lot of what we use these days. Chun Na is apparently a rural country torn up by clan wars between a bunch of ninja. They're even less advanced than Marseille. Things seem to be a little all over the place, and kind of screws up some of the series' logic. Okay, so what he's asking there, what he's trying to explain there, is, what he's wondering basically, storyline-wise, is why is New Mobotropolis so advanced, so technologically sound and everything, but everything else is in the dust? Well, let's not forget, even before New Mobotropolis came around, you had Knothole Village or Knothole Kingdom. And yeah, it was technologically advanced too, I'm not denying that. But, he's wondering why the other countries in the show, the other kingdoms in the show, not in the show, but in the comic, I should say, I'm sorry about that, but in the comic, are not as technologically advanced. Well, from what I understand, it's like Mobius, the world of Mobius is basically trapped. Every country is kind of trapped and set in a different time period. It's like they're set in a different time period, but acknowledge that things are different elsewhere. Like they're in the present time, they know what the present time is, but the way of life falls back on a time of peace and a time of, stability and stuff like that. you know, basically back to peaceful times. So, so basically that's what it is. Hold on for a second. Sorry about that. I had to shut the window there. But like I said, um, basically Mobius, from what I understand as a longtime fan, is basically separate. Like I was trying to say, separated by the kingdoms and countries being, being in the present day, but more or less falling back on the ways and the lives, on the ways, basically on the ways of the past, basically where at times when things were more peaceful and easier, when life was easier and more peaceful and not so troubled. That's why you have Marseille with the way it is. China, the I guess you could say the Mobius equivalent of China, is sort of the same way. You know, basically Mobius is in one time period. It's just that it's all the same time period, like the same year and all that, but it's more or less the countries are separated by how they live their lives. By basically, you know, being the way they are. So, being raised in the ways of the past, if you will. Again, they're not acknowledge. They don't disnot. They again, from what I've read in the comic, depending on who the writer was and is, they don't disacknowledge or disacknowledge any of what goes on in New Mobotropolis. But they just like to have a more. But the way I read into it, places like Mased, Channa, and maybe even the Wolf Pack, if you will, just want a more simpler way of life. Just be that even though they live, like, say, in the year 3240 something, or whatever you want to call it, or 3236, or 3235, or 3237, that they like to remain, that even though they live in that time, in that year, that they want to keep living in the ways of the more peaceful time period. That's why you probably have it the way it is. And yeah, it should be acknowledged, but it's totally up to what Ian Flynn would like to do, or whoever writes the story would like to do. So that's all I'm going to say on it. I'm not going to provide a link, unfortunately. You're just going to have to take these into your own account. I can say just look for them maybe on DeviantArt or Google them. Google in time period / DeviantArt and contracting the past / in DeviantArt into the Google search, and you'll probably find them. So that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'll talk to y'all later.